fellow ministers and to the members of the press, and of course to all of those viewing, listening, wherever you may be. I have some brief remarks, and then of course I'll be open to questions. To start, I wanted to, of course, acknowledge the recent budget debate and extend my gratitude to all the staff whose dedication and hard work behind the scenes made it possible for us to deliver the result that we did. Your efforts were instrumental, and I deeply appreciate all the work and the extra work put in by the staff. It was a long 5 days and nights, and of course, as well, my gratitude to the Ministry of Finance for the work that they have done as well with respect to the budget. Turning to current developments, I'm pleased to announce that the BPO 6 class for KPSM is set to begin. This class will consist of 7 new recruits into our force. And of course, this marks a significant step in strengthening our team and enhancing our capacity to better serve the St. Martin community effectively. In addition to that, I wanted to note that despite the challenges that KPSM is facing in terms of capacity, we remain committed to maintaining an increased police presence and carrying out regular controls. These have been visible over the past days, and there have been some press releases already regarding the numbers thus far. And in that context, to help facilitate the smoother processes on the road during these controls, I kindly urge all road users to carry the necessary documentation with you at all times. And your cooperation with these controls is greatly appreciated. I also received the question with respect to, again, with the road safety. I might be jumping ahead to the questions, but that includes your valid license, your valid registration, your valid insurance. You need to be wearing a seatbelt, and for motorcycles and scooters, it is obligatory for you to wear a helmet at all times. On a different note, we've also observed a concerning rise in individuals expressing suicidal thoughts over the past 2 months. While mental health resources in our community remain limited, this is a critical issue that requires all of us to step up. I want to emphasize the importance of family members and friends checking in on our loved ones and on our friends regularly. Sometimes a simple conversation or the knowledge that somebody cares about you is already enough and can make a significant difference to those suffering. For those of you that are in need of help, I encourage you to reach out to the resources that are available. And of course, I hope that my colleague Minister of VSA can maybe touch on this a bit as well. Lastly, I'm also proud to share that we've successfully completed the assessment phase of our partnership with the Miami-Dade Police. As I mentioned also during the budget debates, one thing that is especially close to me and that I see of significant importance is our youth. And to that effect, we want to execute crime fund projects within our schools and collaborate from a justice perspective along with the Ministry of VSA and the Ministry of Education to really try to reach our youth. And I think that this partnership with Miami-Dade is an important first step. So in the coming months, our officers will begin training to become school resource officers. This initiative aims to build stronger relationships between the youth and law enforcement, and it will equip our officers better to address youth-related challenges more effectively in our schools. Those are, I think, the main points. And I still stand by, the various statements that I made during the budget debate with respect to safety in general in this country. And of course, with road controls, we will continue to be aggressive when it comes to road safety in general. And again, that is both for scooters, motorcycles, as well as those driving on 4 wheels. I think we all need to show better behavior on the road and have more consideration for the other drivers around us. I think our bad behavior on the road also contributes to congestion on the road and traffic, and it affects all of our days very much. So, and I think one of the ones maybe that I didn't get to mention as well is, besides, of course, checking license registration, everything that I mentioned, this was also in the newspaper yesterday and I mentioned it in Parliament, but we will also be addressing the tint situation with vehicles, as I maintain that this is a safety concern for all on the road. So that's all for me, and I'll remain available for questions.
Thank you, Minister Tackling, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Finance, Marinka Gums, to address you. Minister Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika, fellow colleague ministers, members of the press, and to the people of St. Martin. Good morning and blessed day to all. I want to take this opportunity to provide you with important updates on several key matters. Budget 2025. I am pleased to announce that the budget for 2025 has been passed, marking the first time in years that we have achieved an approved budget so early in the year. Contrary to claims that there are no new initiatives, this is a realistic, stabilizing budget with achievable revenue and initiatives for 2025. New projects are being developed in parallel and will be included in future budgets once backed by solid data. I extend my gratitude to all members of Parliament for their unanimous approval and as well as all civil servants who made this possible. With all amendments considered, total revenue is projected at 586 million guilders and expenses at 577 million, leaving an expected surplus of 8 million guilders for the year 2025. As previously stated, I will be preparing a public version of the budget, which will provide greater clarity for the public. This document, which will also be digital, is expected to be finalized by the end of February. Vehicle tax and sticker pickup. In collaboration, of course, with the Ministry of Justice, starting this Friday, vehicle tax stickers will be available for pickup. Delays were due to pending legislation, which was finalized in the Council of Ministers meeting yesterday and will be published today. Once payment is made, you can collect your sticker. Payments via Sento. To modernize payment processes, discussions with Sento began last year. Starting at the beginning of February, you will be able to pay vehicle taxes using Sento with Maestro cards via Windward Islands Bank, Orco Bank, or Banco de Caribe. Previously, online vehicle payments required credit cards. With this upgrade, I hope to see an increase in digital payments, streamlining the process for collecting number plates. Please note that the deadline to pay for your vehicle tax is February 28, 2025. Audit on ghosts civil servants. Concerns have been raised about individuals receiving government salaries without actively working. While monthly payroll approvals are conducted, I have directed the Internal Audit Department and SOAB to conduct a thorough audit to identify and address any ghost workers on the government payroll. This audit will produce a detailed report per ministry specifying individuals receiving salaries without working. Lastly, Finance Friday. Finance Fridays will continue this year on the last Friday of each month, with the first session scheduled for January 31st, 2025. From 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., please feel free to walk in and discuss any matters directly with me. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gums, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Richinel Brug, to address you. Minister Brug, you have the floor.
Good morning. And even though we're so far into the year, this is my first time for the year, so blessed New Year to the people of St. Martin. With regard to VSI, I would like to update the public on the following. It has become public knowledge of the situation at the St. Martin Medical Center with regard to discharge of sewage water in the public drain. I can confirm that this matter has been addressed by the Inspectorate of VSI and has been remedied by the St. Martin Medical Center. However, the public may still observe water being disposed from the newly operated wastewater plant. Please be assured that this water is being tested to ensure that it is in compliance with the legal requirements of the wastewater ordinance. With regard to the Flamingo Beach Club update, this is a very sensitive and ongoing matter that still has the attention of VSA. What we have done since the last press briefing is the establishment have also been requested to provide additional information to see if they're in compliance with the labor laws. And any other progress moving forward will also be updated to the public. One thing I must say is that in this particular case, it has reconfirmed that we do need to address our current labor laws and immigration laws. Definitely. So that has my attention. I have also spoke about it in Parliament, that I am seeking also the assistance of parliamentarians in order to address the relevant laws when it comes to labor that falls under VSA. On another matter, on the 19th of January, there was a fire in the Kulisak area. Regarding this devastating fire, it have impacted several homes and also have impacted several individuals that live in these homes, which amount to about 12 persons. 6 of these persons have received shelter from family and friends. The other 6 have been receiving shelter from the government of St. Martin. They are temporarily placed. We are asking the public that if there's any way that they can help these individuals, because they have not lost, no one was injured and no lives were lost. It was only material things, so we thank God for that. If anyone would like to make donations, please contact our department, and we will gladly, any donations we'll accept and also pass it on to the victims of this fire. On a more positive note, we have also received information that GB is relaunching its senior citizen relief programs. My team and I are actively working with GB as well to see how we can assist the seniors in registering for this relief. We are currently collaborating with 2 foundations, the St. Martin Senior Citizens Recreation Foundation and the Senior Activity Center. We are going to work with the members of these organizations to see if we can help them register for this relief. However, we do also encourage other seniors that are not members of these organizations to please go to GB for the period of the 22nd, so actually starting from today till February 5th. And also there's an opportunity Saturday from 8 to 2. This Saturday from 8 to 2 to apply for relief for GB. With regard to CPS, I have recently received report from CPS that at this current moment, there is no need for alarm. We are in constant communication with our international, regional, and local partners, closely monitoring the situation. As it is currently known that it is flu season, we strongly urge the public of St. Martin to practice proper hygiene ethics. There have been, however, some cases of hand, foot, mouth disease and detection of also instances of children receiving chickenpox in schools. So with this, we would also like to remind parents that if you notice that your children are not feeling well, to please keep them at home and to protect the other students that are not infected, that they can continue being in good health. Yes, I think that is it. That is all the update for us with regard to VSA. Thank you very much, and we'll wait any further questions.
Thank you, Minister Brugh, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We now move on to the question and answer session, and Bibi Hadshaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, ministers. My first question is to the Minister of Justice, Ms. Tackling.
Just waiting for it.
Minister, I took note of all your statements, but one of the things that I think that you didn't mention, and I'm going to ask you about it. Just recently, a couple of days ago, the president-elect of the United States took office. There are some executive orders that he signed, one of them being mass deportation. Does St. Martin have sufficient intelligence to monitor these persons that are going to be deported to neighboring Caribbean islands, and the fact that these people stand a chance of coming into St. Martin? Is there sufficient intelligence to monitor this situation that is going to begin very soon?
Specifically with respect to this, we still have to hunker down and see how we're going to deal with those. Of course, as things pop up, we do address those within immigration. For example, when Trinidad declared a state of emergency at the end of December, immediately we went in, and because of course that affects our border control, knowing that something else is happening within the region. So I think for now we're waiting to see what is going to happen, and then from there we can take steps. But at least we do have systems that are well integrated, that we can take measures to see how we will strengthen our borders, and of course then identify what will be those nationalities that we need to be extra on alert for.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. I would now like to invite Emily of Island Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. So I'll try and keep my questions for the Minister of Justice so we can have some continuity.
Great.
It's clear that St. Martin has plans for a new prison. But the current prison, as I've been doing some research, many refer to it as deplorable. There's questions about the human rights perspective. I understand there's been offers from donors, for example, for gym equipment, educational possibilities. I understand that the therapy that was available for prisoners is not available. So could you give us your assessment of the current situation of the prison? And what are your plans for improvement between now and a new prison? A new prison's only a building. So there's things that could be changed already. So could you give us your current assessment and plans from now until the new prison's in place?
Absolutely, Emil, and thank you for that question. And it's one that is also near and dear to me. I've also done a lot of work in the past with respect to inmates and people in penitentiaries and how we can rehabilitate them back into society. And I think that that's something where we are lacking as a country. We put people there, but we don't have any tools and we don't have any programs to help them reintegrate back into the labor force, back into society. And the new prison we're projecting that it's going to be built, that it's going to be completed somewhere in 2028. So it's still a long way to go under the current circumstances. We actually do have right now a subsidy that we've received from the Netherlands. Actually, that was received a couple years ago. It was about €1 million subsidy that was meant to kind of bridge the gap between now and when we build a new prison. I requested at the end of December an extension because that subsidy was actually expiring at the end of December last year. So I requested the Dutch government to extend that subsidy. It's been conditionally granted for now, but I have to have a follow-up conversation with the requisite individuals in the Netherlands in order to discuss how I intend to spend those funds within this year, because they're a little bit tired of giving us extensions and us not spending money. But that money is meant for structural repairs. I can't use the money, unfortunately, to hire staff, because I think that is an issue at the prison that we cannot deny, that we have structural understaffing, and that structural understaffing is due to a structural sick leave. And I think that that's understandable in the sense, too, because we also have to think about not only the conditions we have prisoners living in, but also the conditions that we have people working under. So I am trying to make an assessment of where can we in the short term use those funds, hopefully with, of course, the approval of our Dutch donors, to use those to have activities for the prisoners. One of the things, for example, is the chapel needed to be repaired. And of course, we don't want to repair an entire structure for a large sum of money while we're building something new. But I think that we can look for an interim solution in the meantime. And I think the woodworking shop was also damaged. We're awaiting material for the sewing room. So the prison is something that has my attention, and we're looking to see how we can structure that. But I'm hoping that I can use that subsidy in this year in order to carry out some projects there that can improve at least the day-to-day for our prisoners, kind of in anticipation of the new prison.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the
Thank you,
floor.
Releika. I'll continue with the Minister of Justice. Minister, as I have a follow-up on the questions my colleague posed about the prison, can you give us an update on the situation with UNOPS? And about that 1 million you're talking about, St. Martin already have a verdict regarding the deplorable conditions of the prison. What about the police cells? Because there was a separation as to who is in charge of the police cells. And there too, the situation is beyond deplorable. Can't you use the fund to at least also repair the cells here?
So those funds I cannot use for the police cells because, a lot of times when we get subsidies from the Netherlands, there's very strict criteria and a framework as to what we can actually spend that on. And it's usually based on a plan of approach or something like that. So we can't use those funds to repair the police cells in Philipsburg. However, there's another project that is going on currently with the NRPB and BZK and to look at funding for larger repairs at the Philipsburg police cells, but also emergency repairs. And that emergency repair project is currently ongoing. So there was an assessment done in the first week of December by ICE so that we could put out a scope of work and start getting bids to do the emergency repairs because there were leaks and things like that there. So that's also a multi-phased approach. And I actually have a meeting later in 2 hours with UNOPS to discuss, where they are with the project and actually both projects. And then I also have a meeting on Monday with the NRPB to discuss the both work that they're supposed to be doing for the larger phase 2 aspect of the Point Blanche prison, but also their coordination with the Philipsburg cells. So hopefully next week during the press briefing, I can give you more of an update on where we stand with those. But they are being actively worked on, and we have different avenues of funding to try to repair those.
Thank you, Bibi. Amo?
So continuing with the prison, much of your explanation refers to what I would say are hard improvements, sort of physical, structural improvements. But there's a lot of need, as I understood it, for example, for perhaps access to online learning options, educational programs, therapy programs, right? We're trying to rehabilitate people so that when they come out, they're able to function in society. So those are what I would call sort of soft improvements that don't depend on the hard improvements. So, and they all seem to be missing now. Is that true? And do you have a plan to address those types of things, right? Because if you're just there and just passing time, that doesn't work.
100%, I agree. And actually in my life before this, I was advising on soft components for the prison. So it's one that, again, I have a deep understanding of. And of course, those soft components, we're looking into how can we implement that into whatever the new facility is. But there is a need right now. And that's why I'm hoping in this discussion, we have identified some of the areas that we would be able to use improvement. And one of those was, for example, we wanted to earmark some type of psychologists and different types of training programs through this subsidy that I mentioned. So we have earmarked a couple of things, and we have some ideas. But again, when we receive a subsidy, we need to then ask for approval for that particular project to be implemented, whether it fits within what's possible. So that's why I did mention the chapel, but to me, that's, when I said that interim, it doesn't need to be a big structure. It needs to be something where people can go and, and practice a religious activity, because that's something that I think helps you get through as well and helps people rehabilitate to a certain extent. And of course, look at how we can bring classes in. And I think too, even things that maybe don't cost money and that I've, had discussions, I know people that volunteer at credits, and give courses or give lectures for those seeking microloans to start businesses. And I think that, having conversations with those same individuals and seeing if there is a a willingness to also go into the Point Blanche prison. And you know, a lot of times we see ex-inmates that come out and they kind of go the route of like the Eenmansack and having a sole proprietorship and doing, you know, yard work or doing carpentry work and things like that. And I think it helps if we can get those business courses in there, you know, teaching the basics of, okay, what do you need to be able to operate even a small little business for yourself, whether you're a mechanic or a carpenter or something like that. So I think all of those are skills that we would like to teach in there. You have those that are working in the kitchen that are learning also culinary skills in that sense. So those soft components, as you say, that's where I say that I think that we're really lacking right now in the prison.
And sorry, just for clarification, would you be willing to make online educational resources available to the prisoners as well?
I would need to see what the current what they're actually able to do up there. You know, I don't want to say, oh, I'm willing to do it, and then of course we don't have the right tools there available. But I'm certainly open to it.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
I'll have a final question for the Minister of Justice. Minister, I know you have not long ago took office, but can you give us an update on, and especially highlight some of the bottlenecks at the Ministry of Justice, Department of Justice, where the processing of residency permits for many, their people are waiting as long as 2 years. And people submit their applications, there are people that have paid their monies, and to date, not even a response from the ministry. Can you identify the reasons for the backlog?
I'm still trying to get to the bottom of those root causes. One of the things that we do see, and that when I look into the system, is that people have incomplete files. So they're missing documents, and maybe you didn't give the correct email address when you filled it in. Maybe you didn't give the correct phone number, and immigration is unable to reach these people to come and update their file. So typically once the file is complete, you know, we're looking at, you know, that 2 to 3 to 4, between 2 and 4 months to really process the application. However, what we're seeing is that there's a large amount of files that do not have all the information required in order to be able to make a decision. So that, I think, is one aspect of it. And to the other end, you know, I think we're really looking at how we can streamline and improve the process and I think get the right people in the right place. I think one of the things that admissions suffers under is the fact that we don't have a diensthoofd, so there's no hoofd toelating. And again, you know, when you're missing that manager at the top to kind of make sure that processes are going, you have a lot of people that are filling multiple roles within the Ministry of Justice. You're the head of this, but you're the acting that, and you're the acting this. And of course, then people are splintered, and it's hard to really stay focused on your core task. So I'm looking at ways of how we can, one, perhaps utilize our software better, you know, the program, the online system that we use to process applications, that we use that also to help us work more efficiently. Because for me, it's, for example, incomprehensible that if we have an online portal where you can upload your file, to me, you should not be able to upload a file if it's incomplete. The system should not accept your file if it's not complete. So otherwise, you're getting people, they submit, and they're like, oh, look, I gave everything, but maybe you were missing documents, you didn't give all the complete information, and then we're kind of running behind the person. And so, you know, I'm looking at how we can improve that entire system to work more efficiently, and especially a system then that I think a person should be able to log in and see exactly where their file is. You can see, oh, it's at compliance, oh, it's at the advice department, oh, it's at the minister for signing. And you can see exactly how long it's between certain places, because I think that brings accountability to the organization as well. So I'm also having discussions with those that provide us this software and also within the kingdom to see if we can utilize maybe a different platform that would work more effectively for us and also give a better service to those applying for residency.
Thank you, Bibi.
My final question for Justice. When a driver hits, let's say, public infrastructure, right? If they call it road furniture here, but so I know an instance, for example, where an individual went off the road, crashed into a light pole, took down the pole, and government never claimed that damage from the insurance company. And so can you tell me, is there any structure in place within the ministry that when there are accidents that happen that involve public infrastructure, that a claim is made to the insurance company to recoup those damages? If an individual crashes into my gate, I'm going to claim the damage from the insurance company. But government has a history of not doing that. And therefore you lose revenue, and that revenue needs to be paid in the future, so that becomes a finance justice issue. Can you tell me how that works now, and are there any plans to address that?
As far as I know, there's nothing in place right now to facilitate that or to ensure that there's a trigger. And I'm sure that after we leave here, my colleague Minister of Finance is going to be like, "Hey, here's money." So we'll look to see how something like that can be facilitated, whether it's that a signal comes from within the police department or the traffic department that says, "Hey, this was damaged in the course of an accident," that we get on that. But I think one of the things that I've noted in my just under 2 months within government here is that, as we say in Dutch, things are stroperig. It's like you're constantly kind of like in quicksand, and the government apparatus is not one that's known for its quickness and its efficiency. But I think we need to look at how can we put systems in place that can trigger alarms. I'm similarly where I have the issue where I feel like personnel files, for example, stay sitting around too long, that you're like, oh, but there was a conviction against this person. How have we not taken action yet? And, it's just this lack of quickness. So I think that we need to look at how we can put the right systems in place, because to me, this is one that should be kind of a no-brainer for us to be able to, I think, score a quick win there. So thank you for that suggestion. And I'm sure we'll follow up on that, or I'm going to hear about it from my right over here. So perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, members of the media. We now move on to the fourth round of questions. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. You're very, very today we have the time. That's good. Thanks. I call on the Minister of Finance, Ms. Gomes. Good morning, Minister. Again, can you give us an update on the 2% COLA that had to be paid to subsidize schools? Can you tell me if the teachers can actually check their account and said, well, yeah, there's some money there? And at the same time, if you can also tell us about the restructuring of the tax office, especially with them having their own little kingdom, one person in charge of all departments. I wrote an article about that because it's very, very sad that so many years that this has been happening, and you yourself were blamed for making certain decisions. But I'd like to know that since we have passed that stage, where are we now with at least getting the ball rolling at the tax department?
Bibi, thank you so much for your 3 questions.
Thank you for counting.
With regard to the 2%, although more of a education topic, I can confirm that all subsidized schools did receive the 2%. I cannot, however, confirm who all actually paid to their respective staff, including the teachers. But I can definitely do a follow-up. And trust me, I do hear from these teachers or staff members. They do let me know. So just give me some time to go through my messages, and I'll be able to answer you in a future message. As for the kingdom, I stated it in Parliament, and thank you so much for your article, because your article kind of helps to raise even more awareness of what's happening within the tax office. And yes, a kingdom of its own. I am not blaming no one individual in the tax office. What I am saying, it cannot continue to work the way it's working. Clearly, the manner in which things are being done is not working for the government of St. Martin or the people. And I say that to say, and I've said it many times, even earlier this morning in an interview, it cannot be a one-course model fitting everyone. Your personal situation, Mr. Lee's situation versus mine can never be the same. So to ask individuals to pay back whatever is owed within a policy of a 9-month time frame, I think needs to be looked at more carefully. I would like to know who came up with this 9-month policy, to be honest with you. And these and other matters will be addressed because what I am having, I believe during the month of January, I can't give you the exact date, but during this month, we will be having heads of departments within finance meeting, where I'm expecting to hear from each head what their goal, their vision, their views are for taking this country for 2025. The reason I'm saying that is because I've been hearing there have been no meetings being held within the respective departments by the department heads. They haven't had structural meetings. How else would we know in terms of the employees? How else would they know where you want to take this organization? Yes, it's one thing to know what your job is. It's a next thing to know the direction of your superiors. You know, and I say that to say that I too will be coming with my plan, my vision, my goals, so that everyone is aligned in understanding this is what I expect. And by means of saying that, I think we need to be a more compassionate country. We've had not only Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, we've also had COVID, and we've had a crisis called GEBE. And I say that with the utmost respect to GEBE as well, but we also need to understand that persons cannot, and it's not that they don't want to pay BB. I have been hearing people say, Minister, I want to pay. I just cannot pay within this 9-month frame. Do something, make something possible. So if I'm hearing the cries of the people, I have to address them, and it will be addressed in this upcoming meeting. And as for the statement, so it was actually 3 things, but let me add in this because it's very important. That accusation of me being a Nepo baby, I need to, if it wasn't brought forward before, let me make it clear now that individual to whom I listened to. And this is something I think across all ministries, it was asked by myself in Parliament, come up with a policy on persons who are in acting positions, find out from the relevant ministers how many persons are in acting positions and for how many years. And that is something now that I am going to be tasked with doing. And the reason for that is because, A, we can't continue to use our civil servants. If you believe that this person is qualified for this role, then make it happen. Make the person vast in the position. But to have them 10 years, 10 years acting, no, I think we need to really cut it right now. Look closely at that matter, and I am going to once again dispel that person at the tax office is of no relation to myself, none whatsoever. But I'm very happy to know that her LB was signed yesterday, contrasigned by the governor and myself. Thank you, Bibi.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Emil, you have the floor.
Minister of Finance, thank you. Congratulations on passing your budget.
Thank you.
My understanding of the budgetary process is that as a financial management tool, it seems to be on a very high level, meaning it doesn't really get into some of the nitty-gritties. So I have a question for you about, can you provide clarity on cash flow or, for example, producing a balance sheet? For example, there are some things that are not clear, that there seems to be outstandings that government owes to people from 2024, but yet the Minister of TIAT referred to using $500,000 or of unused funds. So it seems to indicate that there's a cash flow issue or lack of clarity from a balance sheet perspective. So if you could explain that to the people. And just a quick question, you had formed an Airbnb committee. Can you explain what the results of that have been, what the findings have been? Has that garnered any revenue for the country?
Okay, to answer your 2 questions, Emil, thank you so much for your questions. I think one of the things that I have noticed once I became minister was the fact that things don't run seamless throughout this organization. Speed, the Minister of Justice mentioned that just now, and that's the next thing. So while you have, for example, persons who do business on behalf of government, and like you mentioned, that may be owed X amount for over X amount of years and haven't yet been paid, the issue is, first of all, we need to determine if the right process was formed. And clearly, what I've noticed is that that hasn't always been the case. Was the right person who requested for a service, should that person have asked? Who signed off on these things? And were the invoices brought in? So I now had to come in and say, well, okay, let's now streamline. We have decided to form where we have an email where all invoices are now streamlined. So now it's a little easier for payments to be had. And then on top of that, a next thing that I did so that everyone knows is that there was this thing of where individuals who do work on behalf of government wouldn't get their money because they owe taxes. That has stopped. You can't utilize one thing for the next. So you do work on behalf of government, you get your payment. You deal with your taxes thereafter. And I think that's a good thing because don't forget, some of these individuals or companies, they have to pay workers. They have to pay their employees. So you can't hold back one thing and expecting that a service was already completed. In regard to the Airbnb, we are forming a task force. And that task force will include, I said it in Parliament, persons such as SHTA, because I really believe that the SHTA would be instrumental in helping us solve this problem, amongst others. But first, the task would be to getting the Airbnb under control.
So just for clarification, so for example, the Heineken Regatta has not been paid for 2024. They've been doing this year after year. I would assume that that process has been ironed out, but yet they haven't been paid. And could you address how government has the 500,000 unused funds when it seems that government is so tight on resources? So that seems to provide a sort of contradiction that's not clear. If you could explain those 2 points.
Well, I am not aware of the Heineken Regatta situation, to be very honest with you, Emil. However, in terms of the monies that were paid towards Soul Beach, and I know that's the 500,000 you're referring to, that was based on unused funds for 2024. To be honest, this is all a part of the Ministry of TIAT's vision. And I would ask that more clarity from that minister can be brought forward as she outlines even more her plans where Soul Beach is concerned.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, MLBB. We move on
Minister,
to the
I have one more
fifth round.
question for you. And I'm going to ask you this in a way that you would be able to give us some answers. And today is good, really, because you're giving good answers today.
Okay.
Minister, we've heard a lot about Soul Beach is one, but we also heard when this government took office, the Marcelina cabinet, that the government is broke. We're bankrupt. We're going broke. But yet, Soul Beach, $700,000. And then we're waiving fees like crazy, lottery fees. As the Minister of Finance, are we financially capable of waiving this kind of fees? What's your opinion? Even if you're telling me that it's during the hurricanes, hurricane was 2017, we are how many years away? 8 years, and only now minister is waiving these fees. And was it done just for a particular lottery company, or is it for across the board for all those that couldn't operate during the pandemic? I mean, I know Parliament asked this, but since even though Parliament asked, we didn't get the clarity that I'm looking for. So if you can provide that as a Minister of Finance, I'd be very much happy to hear.
Bibi, thank you for your question. I believe I mentioned this in the past where the Prime Minister did mention that we are bankrupt. I would not have chosen those words had I been the Prime Minister, but I am not. So I would speak from basically what I know and what I understand. I do not believe, so we are not in a great financial position. Like I did mention, 586 is our projected revenue, 577 is our expenses, leaving 8 million in surplus. Okay, that's where we stand. And I could answer that question now because I presented it to Parliament. So that is now answered. However, do I agree? You're asking me if I agree with the fees that were waived. If it's across the board, according to me, it's all but one. If I am not mistaken, please don't quote me on it because I could be wrong. But if my hearing is good, I believe it was all but one. And, truthfully, we need to now streamline because it's about bringing money into the country. I cannot sit here or stand here before you, hear from the Minister of Justice, for example, who has come already knocking and saying, Minister, we need money, which I totally understand, and such initiatives were made possible. But truthfully, it's about bringing in money to the country via all ministries at this time. And I think when it comes to matters, since we have a cap at what we can sign off to as ministers, anything above that too, when it comes to waiving a fee, should be brought in the Council of Ministers meeting so that all of us can have a collective agreement as to what we are approving in signing off.
As a follow-up, are you telling me that the waiving of the fees were not discussed in the Council of Ministers? Unlike a direct yes or no.
I am saying that the waiving of the fees has not yet been brought to the Council of Ministers.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Emil, you have the floor.
Well, and that sort of touches then. Could you clarify for the people any decisions which cost above a certain amount or have a financial implication? I believe it's over 50,000.
Correct.
Dollars or guilders?
Guilders.
Guilders needs to have Council of Ministers approval. So I'm going to go back to your comment then about the 500,000 unused, where you said you're going to have a conversation with the Minister of TIAT, because the decision for Soul Beach is way over that 50,000 guilders and therefore also should have come to the Council of Ministers for discussion. So wouldn't the time for that discussion have been then?
I agree with you, Emil, in terms of the timing, but don't forget, the Minister of TIAT saw it best fitting to wanting to bring such an initiative back to the floor or the country. And I agree with wanting to bring back Soul Beach just because, A, it started here 29 years ago. This is going to be their 30th year, bringing it back home. We saw the benefits of it in Aruba. I think a clearer study needs to be done as to why it's no longer in Aruba, though. I believe that should happen because we need to understand if something is working for you, why not continue with it? So that we know going forward what is best for St. Martin, where Soul Beach is concerned. But I think besides the Soul Beach factor, besides the Heineken Regatta factor, there is an X factor, and that's the Carnival factor. And I say that with all due respect because there seems to be this sentiment that the government isn't doing anything on behalf of our own product, our own cultural product, and that being Carnival. And to my understanding, there is going to be an MOU signed between SCDF and the Minister of TIAT concerning funds that they will be receiving. And according to my understanding, again, that these are funds that have never been received by SCDF. So I look forward to seeing more of this MOU because I think it's going to also raise awareness as to everyone's responsibilities, what is their expectations versus ours, and making sure that everyone really gets a fair share of this pie, fair share.
So just for clarity, Council of Ministers did approve the Soul Beach project?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Minister, in understanding what you're saying on one level with the MOU, which I agree, Carnival is the people's, their fete. But are you aware that SOG took the Carnival Foundation to court, and there's supposed to be a verdict very soon on placing a lien on their account for non-paid bills? Is government looking at that?
Bibi, to answer directly, I am not aware of the pending court case, but I guess I am almost certain that maybe the Minister of TIAT is aware of this, and this is a topic that I would broach with her so that I could get more clarity on the matter at hand.
Emma?
And Minister, regarding the lottery fees, could you explain why the decision to waive fees instead of just reducing the fees?
I cannot, unfortunately, Mr. Lee. That was a decision taken by the Minister of TIAD, so any questions concerning the waiving of such fees could be asked to her.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Minister. As we only have about 10 minutes left, we will allow some time for the Minister of VSA to get some questions. I would now like to invite Minister Brugge to the podium. And Bibi Hadshaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ralaika. Minister Brooke, you mentioned briefly the situation at Flamingo. And, you know, I am aware that the workers met with you and they also met with Member of Parliament on the ongoing situation, alleged abuse and you know, victimization and such there. My question is, you said there was a control. Did the control yield any kind of results that is pleasing to the minister, who is also a former inspector of education? I mean, you know what inspection is like. You know that workers, inspectors especially, are not supposed to be leaking information to the company or informing them that there is going to be a control. I mean, you are aware of this. I discussed this with you. And to say that, you know, you request more information, did the inspection that took place, did it yield control? Are you satisfied with it? Is the workers, the local workers that are paying taxes on St. Martin, have they received any form of satisfaction thus far?
Thank you very much for your question, Ms. Bibisha. But as I said, it's an ongoing case, so I cannot divulge exactly what the findings are. But I have received a final report, I think day before yesterday, pertaining to it. So I still have to go through that report in order for me to form an opinion on that. With regard to leaking of information, what's not, I have not received any complaints, or I have not received any, how do you say, besides the conversation with you, there has been nothing brought to my knowledge with regard to leaking of information from the inspectorate.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Emma?
My question, Minister, is regarding the new hospital. You've given an update as to the projected completion date, but could you give us an update on what has been the total change in price from the time of the original contract to now? I understood there may have been a number of price changes. So could you explain what's just the total difference in price between the time of the original contract to now, as well as have there been any significant design changes to the hospital from the original contract to now?
Yeah. With regard to your first question with the difference between the pricing, unfortunately I don't have that information. I would get that information and get back to you at the next press briefing. And with regard to the design, yes, I am aware as well from prior. I am aware of well that prior to taking office that there was a change in the design. Exactly what the changes were, I'm not aware. That information I can also get back to you at a later date. But coincidentally, today we do have a meeting with stakeholders, and St. Martin Medical Center is one of them that we're going to discuss about the finances as well. So hopefully in that meeting I can get that information directly.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the final round. Bibi, we have about 5 minutes. You may pose your question.
Thank you, Ralaika. Minister, can you give us an update on the construction of the new general hospital? Where are we with the projected date? Are we still on track?
Yeah. That's a question that I have also received in Parliament. Yes, we are still on track, even though we're 200 days from the last report that I received from them. Even though we're 200 days behind schedule, it is intended to finish still on track.
Thank you, Minister. Emma?
My question is regarding the SAHA, or the General Health Insurance.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity now to familiarize yourself with the legislation? Have you read it? And in all discussions with other countries in the past about their general health insurance or universal health insurance, a critical component as to the success or failure of that has been determining what is an appropriate package of coverage. Are you familiar now with what the current proposal is for that package, and are you comfortable and in agreement with that?
Thank you very much for the question. I have not completely read the documents. I've started already, but I've also been involved in 2 presentations, one at the university and the other one while I was a member of parliament. I think SAHA is not we call it National Health Insurance, is not the only solution, not the only solution for the situation we are in with regard to our health, the health insurance. But I had a conversation with SER, and they assured me that by the end of the first quarter, this information, their report will be delivered to us. And once I go through those documents, then I can form a final decision on how we're going to move forward pertaining to the SAHA. But I have started looking into the matter as well, though.
You just mentioned that it's not the only sort of critical part of our healthcare system, but it is a critical part in terms of laying out the financial structure for that healthcare system. Mm-hmm. So getting the financial picture right, in other words, enough premiums collected and managing the expenditure is a huge part of our healthcare system. So what else is more important than streamlining that cost versus revenue part of our healthcare system?
No, when I say it's not the only, because everyone seems to look at the National Health Insurance as the only solution to resolve the issues that we're in. And that's what I meant by it's not the only solution. There are other things as well that have to come in play with regard to addressing our financial situation when it comes to our health insurance situation. But again, that's why I said I would need to look at all the different aspects and also have meetings with stakeholders, even outside of SZV, in order for me to have a better understanding and also to present a better overview of the best solution moving forward from VSR under this ministry.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, members of the media. That does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. For a brief broadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, TeleTV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel, Government of St. Martin. For a video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.